Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my December reading wrap-up. So just as kind of a heads up of my hair, I am letting it air dry. I don't like to heat style it, so that's why it's looking a little bit flat and a little bit damp. But I wanted to go on and share with you what I read for the month of December and what my thoughts were on these books. I actually did a pretty good job of reading or kind of getting through some of the books I was in the middle of. I ended up finishing 6 books, although quite honestly, I ended up reading 4 books in the last week of December, and the first 2.5 weeks of December, I really struggled to get through 1 or 2 books. And it's mostly because I kind of fell into a small mini reading slump. Also with the holidays, things got busy. And then right in the last week of December, I realized that I was very close to hitting my Goodreads goal of 50 books. I was at 46. And so I read through the other 4 books so that way I could reach that goal, which I did on December 31st. So let me share what the books were and what I thought of them. So the first book, I'm actually going to put the cover image here because I had to return it to the library, and it's Vicious by V.E. Schwab. So this is book 2, and the first book is Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. No, flip that around. I read Vengeful, and the first book is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. So Vicious follows these 2 characters, Eli and Victor, and they're students in college, and they are studying EOs, extraordinary individuals, and trying to find a pattern between how an EO gets his powers. Like, how does a person become a superhero? Well, they figure it out, and they manage to turn themselves into EOs, but in the process, they become enemies with each other. And so Vicious, the first book, follows them as they struggle to basically get revenge on each other, and then they bring in other characters. In Vengeful, we follow some of those same characters again as they continue to basically kind of fight for power and fight for like self-preservation. And so it's really interesting to see more like EO, like superhuman powers. I thought it was really good. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I think I also gave Vicious, the first book, a 5 out of 5 stars. I just really liked the writing style for both of them. I liked the character development. I thought that each of the characters have their own perspective, and so the author did kind of shift back and forth between different character perspectives, and I thought it was really easy to keep them separated. Like, I wasn't stuck going, who was this again, like that I'm reading? Like, I knew who each person was. So overall, 5 out of 5 stars. Really liked it and would definitely recommend it to you all. All right, the next book is a book that I read for one of the readathons, and this is Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. I read this for the Creating & Co. Bingo readathon. It was, I think the challenge was to read a book with stars on the cover, and so I picked this one because it seemed fairly, like, you know, fairly small-ish, thin-ish. I thought I could get through it fairly quickly, even though it's nonfiction, and it is a book that I've been wanting to read in a while. Now, astrophysics is not a topic that I'm super familiar with or super interested in. Like, I'm interested in learning more about this topic and reading about it, and so that's why I read it, but it is not like at the top of my list of like most interesting, you know, subject matters. So I read this, and at the time I thought that it was written really well, that the author did try to put it into layman's terms and make it approachable to the general public, such as myself. However, now that I'm thinking about this, and it's been about, you know, 3 weeks since I read it, I don't quite remember what it talked about. So just kind of keep that in mind. I did think it was well written. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because at the time I was like, yeah, I get this. I like it. But I mean, it just didn't stick with me, which is no fault of the book. I think it's just my own, like, not being as interested in the subject matter, and because it wasn't a storyline, I didn't like retain the information. So that's my fault, not a fault of the book. Another book that I read is a book that I read for school. So I am an English language teacher, and we do give our students like English novels, like full-length novels to read, and they're geared towards the different English levels. So for my level, my students had to read Holes by Louis Sachar, and this is a middle grade book about this boy who is sent to a juvenile like detention center, which is basically a camp called Camp Green Lake. And he is not actually a criminal. Like, he didn't do the thing that they found him guilty for, but he just has really, really bad luck. So he goes to this camp that's like in the desert, and their punishment, all the kids that are here at this detention center, like their punishment is to dig a hole. They have to dig a 5 by 5 by 5 foot hole. And once they're done with the hole, they can just spend the rest of the day relaxing. So throughout the story, the main character, whose name is Stanley, he kind of starts to suspect that the warden of this prison or kind of detention center is looking for something, and that's why they're having to dig all these holes. And so he's trying to figure out, like, what is the warden looking for? As well as also trying to get rid of like the bad luck curse that he thinks his family has inherited. So it's a really cute book. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, because for a middle grade book, I think it's engaging. I think it's interesting. Even though it's an older book, like I know it's been out for a while, I feel like it's still kind of relatable in some ways. I really liked it. Honestly, I don't know what my students thought of it because they didn't read it. I know they didn't read it, but we did talk about it and discuss it, and I think some of the topics were interesting for them, like nicknames and like, what do you do if you're punished but you didn't actually commit the thing that you're being punished for. So overall, really like this book. I would definitely recommend it for someone who's in kind of middle school or like upper elementary school and reading chapter books. The next book that I read is The Last Mrs. Parrish, and this is by Liv Constantine. Liv Constantine is actually the pen name of 2 sisters who co-authored this book. And I hated this book. It's labeled under fiction, but I think it's also kind of a suspense type fiction. It reminded me a whole lot of Gone Girl in the sense that the first 45 to 50% of the book is one part of the story, and then all of a sudden it flips, and once you get to part 2, that's where things start to get interesting. It's the exact same thing in Gone Girl. The first half of the book sets things up. The second half is where things start to get interesting because now they start explaining them. So in this book, you have this woman, Daphne Parrish, and she is the Mrs. Parrish. And it seems like she has this perfect lifestyle, and this, who's the other girl? I don't even remember the other girl, Amber. Amber kind of comes into Daphne's life, and this is all, or at least the first half of the book is all from Amber's perspective. And she comes into Daphne's life and basically kind of infiltrates it, and you can see in the story that she's trying to basically become Daphne, and she basically wants to take over Daphne's life, including kind of stealing the husband away. And so part of trying to understand the storyline, not understand the storyline, but to figure out what's happening is understanding why Amber is doing this and what's going on, and then obviously you know that there's probably going to be some sort of twist involved. Like I said, I absolutely hated this book. Amber is such an unhappy, terrible character, and you can see that the authors are purposely setting her up that way, but it was just so painful to read. I wanted to DNF this so many times. However, I knew that there was some sort of twist. And so I was like, get to the twist, get to the twist. I actually ended up going on to Goodreads and reading a review with a spoiler to see what the twist was. And then I was like, do I want to read the rest of the book? Yeah, I'll read it to see what happens. But, you could kind of see some of the hints in the book that would lead up to the twist. So was it a twist? Yes, but kind of not really. You knew what was going to happen as soon as it flipped to the different perspective, you realize, oh, okay, now I know what's happening, and now I know how it's going to end. So I don't know, something rubbed me the wrong way with this book, and I really didn't like it. I know that there's a lot of positive reviews about this. I think I actually pulled this one as one of the reading challenges on the Bingo Readathon challenge, because it was read a book that is recommended by Celebrity Book Club. So this was on Reese Witherspoon's book club for Audible, and I don't know if it would have made a difference if I had listened to it, but reading it, I mean, I definitely wanted to put it down like 2 or 3 times. I absolutely hated it. On Goodreads, I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars, but in all honesty, this would probably be a 1.5 out of 5 stars. It just, I don't know. I just don't like it when a book spends half, or when an author spends half of a book setting you up so that they can suddenly give you this plot twist half the way through. Like, I don't know, there was just too much exposition. There was just too much like explaining all the details of like high society and being wealthy, and Amber was just such an unhappy, unlovable, like angry person that like you were frustrated for everybody she was around. Like she had nothing good to say throughout this entire book. So it was just all really difficult to read because of that too. So my opinion on this, I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion, but I definitely did not like this. The next book that I read is The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society, and it's by Marianne Schaefer and Annie Barrows. I believe Marianne Schaefer is basically the main author, and then Annie Barrows is like her either daughter or cousin or niece or someone related to her who helped Marianne Schaefer out when like towards the end of the book with some final edits. They mention it a little bit in the back of the book. This was a cute book. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It is purely letters, like letter correspondence from one character to a bunch of people on the island of Guernsey. So this does take place immediately after World War II. So there's a lot of talk about going back to the normal way of life, or trying to return back to a normal way of life after war. And so you have your main character, Juliet, who is thinking about doing a writing piece on like books and reading clubs. And so she hears about the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society, which is a reading club on the island of Guernsey that people created to kind of help them get through the war. And so she ends up corresponding with a bunch of people on the island who are part of this book club, ends up getting to know them really, really well, and then goes to visit them on the island. And so it's basically a bunch of correspondence between those characters on the island and the main character, Juliet and her book publisher, or like her book editor, and then like some other friends, and there's a romantic interest in there. So like I said, it was cute. It was a very like easy to read, nothing like that makes your heart clench and go, oh my God, you know, like the character isn't doing anything overly like foolish, isn't doing anything overly foolish or like rash where you're like, no, why are you doing that? You know, the characters aren't unlikable, but they're a little bit boring. I don't know. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. There is a part where there's like a romantic interest, but I didn't see the romantic interest until it was like actually mentioned in a letter, like, hey, did you know about this guy? What do we think about this guy? And I was like, that's not referenced anywhere in any of the other letters. Like, how did the editor figure it out just by letter correspondence? I don't know. I just felt like there was some kind of like, all of a sudden, let's throw in this romantic interest that otherwise wasn't hinted at anywhere else up until that point. So this is a book that I got from a library book sale, so it is from my own personal collection now. I am going to be donating it back to the library, which was my original intention when I purchased the book, was to, you know, I think it was like 50 cents for this book, so now I'm just going to donate it back to the library. So cute, but I wouldn't read it again, and, you know, I'd recommend it if you're kind of up for like a low-key, like easy read, but it's not gripping, if you know what I mean. There is a movie adaptation to this. I haven't seen it, but I have heard that the movie adaptation is a lot better. So if you've seen the movie version, let me know if you liked it or not. The last book that I read is, the cover is a little bit hard to see because it's so glossy, but it's The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. And this is a YA novel that's basically a retelling of A Christmas Carol. So Holly Chase is a Scrooge, and she's visited by the three ghosts, Christmas past, present, and future. She basically laughs at the whole thing and thinks it's not real. And then I think in the next day or next 2 days, she basically dies. And so this book follows her after her death, which is why it's called The Afterlife. I thought that this was a really interesting take on A Christmas Carol, like what happens after these ghosts visit you. And it does say every Scrooge deserves a second chance. So you do know that there's going to be like a happy ending to it all, but I was pleasantly surprised by how it actually ended. Going into this about like a third of the way through, or maybe like 40% of the way through, I was like, this sounds like it's turning into almost like a romantic novel. Like there's a lot more romance than I thought there was going to be. And so honestly, I wasn't sure if I wanted to finish this, but at the same time, I definitely wanted to finish this because I needed to hit my Goodreads goal. And so I skipped ahead. I think I was about here. And then I skipped ahead to the last like 5 chapters, and I skim read through the last 5 chapters, and I was like, oh, I was not expecting that ending. So then I went ahead and went back and finished reading the book completely. And the amount of romance that there was actually not as much as I thought it was going to be. And to me, there was the ending, I don't know, maybe for other people it wasn't a surprise, but for me it was a little bit of a surprise. There was a slight unexpected twist to it. So I did really like this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I would definitely recommend this if you kind of like Christmas, especially for the holidays. Like I know now Christmas is over, the holidays are over, but for next year in December, if you are interested in reading, you know, kind of Christmas type stories, and this one is based off of the idea of A Christmas Carol, I think that this would be a fun read for you. So that's what I read for the month of December. If you're interested in seeing what I plan to read for the month of January, I'll leave a link to that in the cards above and also in the description bar below. If you're interested in seeing some of my previous reading wrap-up reviews, I'll leave links to those as well in case you're interested in seeing like what books I've read in the past and my thoughts on them. And generally, thank you so much for watching and kind of sticking around until the end. Please like and subscribe for more of these videos, and also planner related videos because I do those as well. I will talk to you in the comments. Have a great rest of the week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.